All right, so thank you very much, Matteo, for joining us today. You are in Thailand right now, so tell us, how is Thailand? Let's start from there. Let's give a little background of where we are. I'm in Verona, in Italy, and it's really beautiful here today. So tell us about Thailand.
So, Obehi, nice to meet you. Nice to speak to everyone. So today is the 14th of September. I find myself in a place called Koh Phangan. It's an island in the south of Thailand, in the Gulf of Thailand. And it's the place that I've been living in for the last years. And the reason why I lived here is because I started to come here about 10 years ago, because it's one of the spiritual hubs of Asia. But the reason why I stabilized and I settled down here some time ago is because I work for a school that is located on this island. It's called Samakaruna, and the subtitle is it's an healing and awakening school. So it's a school that promotes yoga, tantra, breath work, meditation, so all kind of personal development and spiritual activities. And before COVID, it used to attract many people from around the world that came here to do either detoxes or yoga TTCs, and TTC means teacher trainings, as well as meditation retreats.
That's really interesting. I was reading on your website where on the about page you said something like, "I am a nomad by nature," and that you really move around. Can you say something about that?
Well, to answer this question, I have to go really back in time, because this nomadic quality of mine has been there even when I was very young. My family kind of set me on this nomadic or traveler's path. I had an aunt that was English, so I spent a lot of time in England when I was young, during the summer. I had another aunt in France, and same thing. So I was always traveling around for one reason or the other. And then when I was 13, my mother and father signed me up for an exchange program in Australia. And that was kind of an initiation, because from my hometown, which is kind of a special hometown, it's the center of Rome, which all the churches, the Vatican, and the Colosseum, all these things, which has been part of my upbringing ever since I was born. I traveled to Australia, which is literally the other side of the world. And that was my initiation into traveling. I went there for a summer, and I went to what in the English tradition is a boarding school. We had to wear dresses. It was the opposite of what I ever known. So very early on, I faced what it means to have different culture. I mean, it was an exchange program that lasted 2 months and a half. It was just during the summer. So there were some Australians coming to Italy and some Italians going to Australia. And I was one of the kids selected to go from Italy to Australia for the summer.
All right. You see, that is really a very interesting moment in life too. You know, as you are just growing up, like you said, you grew up in Rome. Let me say, as a child growing up, what was going through your head?
Well, what I will share might be a bit of a surprise for you, because I was coming from Rome, which still is a big city, and I didn't have a very strong Catholic upbringing, where the exchange program brought me to a host family, which was of Italian origin, and they were very religious. So I was not religious, and they were very religious, and they got traumatized, or traumatized maybe is another word. They got a bit surprised because I was not religious. they thought I'm going to have an Italian foreign student, and he's going to be religious or Catholic. And I was not. So what I discovered is many things. One of them is that the people that immigrated from Italy to Australia, or to Italy, to any parts of the world, had an idea of what is Italy, of the Italian culture, which was very, very different from mine. And they were expecting me to be very, I don't know if it's religious, but conventional. But even though I was 13, I was already not that conventional. Of course, Rome is the capital of the Catholic Church. But within Italy, there's been always two polarities. One is the Catholic, and there was another one, which is the polar opposite, the against the Catholics, okay? To be very opposed to that main culture. And you can feel this, for example, if you go to Tuscany, the history of Tuscany has been always contraposed or opposed to the domain of the Pope. So they swear a lot, they talk bad about the church. So there's these two polarities. As strong as the Catholic culture was, there was a counter culture which was also very intense. And I belong to this second one.
Okay, that is very interesting to know. Very interesting to know. All right, now still remaining on the early age for you, when you were going now maybe to London, to Paris, and to Australia, and you were seeing other children like you, when you maybe talk, exchange opinion, and you talk about church, what were you sharing with them? Because since you were not of the idea of the church this time, let's say you are the opposite of it, what were you sharing? How were they reacting to it?
Well, a very honest answer is it was confusing, because there was I repeat myself, there is an image of Italians to be Catholic, to be conservative, and I was not. And that, for me, internally kind of created a little bit of a confusion, if we can say, because at the same time, I wanted to be who I was, which was not conventional, but I also wanted to fit and to be part of whatever environment I was in. So this has been one of the themes of at least my upbringing until a certain age, to desire to fit, to belong, but at the same time respect who I was and what I was believing in.
Now we're going to talk about where you are currently working, which is the realm of healing. How did you know that where you were going, where you were actually supposed to go? No, because in life we are basically in a journey. Sometimes we know where we are going, sometimes we don't know where we are going. How did you know that where you were going was the direction that you wanted to go at a point in your life, of course?
The answer to this question is trial and error. I tried to do a number of things that did not work. And by trying things that did not work for me, I finally ended up to do things that eventually, bit by bit, worked for me. And this happened quite late. So it took some time. But it is true, and it comes to the theme of this podcast, or at least one of the themes of this podcast, that I was, as I said, living in Rome, and I got interested and lucky enough to start practicing yoga at an early age. I was 22 when I started to practice yoga, and yoga was still not so popular, but Rome was a big city, so we had that option. And by practicing yoga, I started to be exposed to spirituality, essentially. And following the yogic path, having a yoga practice brought me to be more and more interested in integrating a spiritual practice in my life. Whereas, as I said, I come from a context in which there was a strong opposition to religion, a strong opposition to spiritual work. The meaning of yoga is yug is to unite. So yoga is union. Yoga is union with essentially with the sky, with the infinite, with the universal consciousness. But at the same time, the meaning of yoga is to say, to really understand that the polarities, the oppositions, like religion, non-religion, they are so only if you see them from the inside. If you see them from a broad perspective, this polarization or cultural differences and all of this is really relative. And there are realms and levels of being and of life which are there is an absence of conflictual of that thing. There is that thing that seemed to be in conflict at some level, it is not at another level.
And this is very important to know too, because if we are speaking from a religious point of view, in most of the cases, usually a conflict, no? In that one believes is, especially if you understand very well, because you are a Westerner, you do understand it as Christians. When they come to other land, they didn't tell you, okay, where everything is equal, so you just choose the one that they want to believe. If that was the case, nobody would become Christian, at least not in many cases in Africa, no? It wasn't a question of choosing. It was imposed, So it's,
Yes.
it's a completely different thing. But now, when we talk of spirituality, because sometimes I actually try to make a distinction between religion and spirituality, where we are looking at one energy now, where everything is connecting to. In this case, you can't really say this is the best. We are just connecting in different ways. All right, let's leave that apart. Yoga is not something that is typically Western tradition or Western culture, as it were. How did it get here? Because now it's very, very popular across Western culture, whether you are talking of Europe or in UK, or US, or another culture that is dominated by Western influence. Yoga is very popular here. How did we get to this point?
Thank you for asking this question, because this allows us to be a little bit playful and make a few jokes now. Because the current reality in 2021 is that yoga, which has its roots in the Himalayas in India, is way more popular in the West than it is in the East. And in the East, in India, there are Western practices like cricket, for example, which is more popular than in England or than anywhere, or football. So we have seen in the last, let's say, 100 years, a shift from yoga being very popular in India, or part of the tradition of India, to be very popular in the West, and Western practices to be very popular in the East. So to come back to your question, how did yoga land in the West, and how did it land? It started at the beginning of the last century, when the British colonization brought a number of anthropologists, archaeologists, theologists to India. So the history of yoga in the West is linked to the fact that India was a British colony, and the British came to India and the academic world of England started to be curious about what is this strange religion that Indians have, Hinduism, what are all these practices, how come? And little by little, in the academic elite, especially of certain parts of India, but most of them, let's face it, in the west coast of the United States, they started to be interested in what is all this Indian spirituality, how come it's so different. They really were genuinely curious. There was an academic, scientific, cultural desire to understand the Indian mentality and Indian mentality, so the yoga tradition and the Hindu tradition. So what happened in the beginning of the 1900s is that some people were invited by like foundations or schools or universities to travel to the United States and give lectures. So there were many gurus of those times, many yogis, they were invited to the West to say, please come to the West, we'll pay you a trip, and please explain to us what the heck is all these Hindu goddesses or Hindu gods. We don't understand it. What the heck is that? So there were many people who were invited to give lectures. And that's how it slowly, and we're talking here now about 100 years ago, to be popularized in the West it started through academia and social research.
I'm trying to say something. You look at a typical Western lifestyle, very busy lifestyle, and you look at, say, for example, you are sitting down and doing yoga. What do you say about that two position on this mentality of trying to calm down and the other mentality that you try to run all day long?
Okay, coming back to what I said at the beginning, the reason why yoga came to the West was more for curiosity and academia. But then slowly, getting to know this culture, they realized that part of the Indian culture was, first of all, meditation. Second of all, some physical practices that had a number of benefits, you know, and the primary benefit, and let's this is going to be a little bit controversial, and I hope I'll get my words right, but so meditation in many ways can be put together with prayer. So in the West we had prayer, in the East we had meditation. But prayer in the West was like all heavy with all the belief system and all the heaviness that comes, the conditioning that comes with, whereas meditation has the benefits of prayer without having to subscribe to a religion, to a dogma. It was way more free. And this comes to one of the key principles, if you want to understand yoga, and is the fact that whereas religion in the West, but even in Africa, even in the Islam world, they went through a process of structure. So there was a hierarchy within the religious. Somebody knew somebody, then there was, like in the Catholic Church, there is the Pope. In the Anglican Church, there is the king. So there is a hierarchy, there's a structure who says what is right and what is wrong. In the Hindu world, this has never happened. There is not an authority that can say this is right and this is wrong. There are different traditions, and there are people following certain qualities of God of one kind, and others that follow other gods. So this is very famous in the in the spiritual world. The world at some point turned from from polytheist, so multiple gods, to one god. Whereas in India, that never happened. And even today, there's hundreds of gods, hundreds of goddesses, and everybody can worship whatever they want. I don't know if I responded to your question.
Oh, oh, sure. Yeah, I really find it interesting. Just that as we are talking, I'm trying to metabolize the point that you are bringing out, and they're really very interesting. Especially, like I was saying before, that it appeared, at least to me, that there is actually one God, if you want to call it God, this energy that we are all tapping into. That is the way I look at it. But we are tapping into it from different sources, from different understanding. Because it is just natural. If I were born in Europe, I just understand it from the way the European understand it. It couldn't occur to me how the African understand it, except that consciousness had to be introduced to me. But it doesn't mean the people in Africa do not know God or this energy that we want to refer to as God. So my question is, what really is the function of this aspect in our society, the spiritual life, our spiritual life?
Let me take a breath here. I'm not sure about this answer. I think that one of the possible answers to this question is that we have a tendency towards feeling connected with dimensions that are higher than us. And you can see this at many levels. Coming back to Italy, when you go on Sunday to see your football match, your team, in that moment, you're part of a bigger scheme. You are fighting for the team. Your individuality gets lost. Same goes with going to church. Somehow your own experience gets blended or melted within all the others. And same thing goes with sports. If I am for example, a free diver, and I am passionate about free diving, the fact of going under the water and spending so much time in the water gives me this impression that I am a part of the ocean. Or if you are a skier, you go and you're part of the mountain. So there is this desire within the human race to melt, to fuse, to unite with the environment and with something bigger than us. And this, for example, explains ideologies, nationalism, and so many things. Back in the days, the fact of being Italian or nationalist or French or German give me a sense of belonging, a sense that is not just me. I'm not just alone in this body.
And what if someone do not join this group? Some of them are mini groups, some of them are really big groups. Okay, we are looking at it from the point of view of spirituality, Say you do not belong to any church, for example, or have any creed. Would you say that person is lost?
No, because there is something in this world which is called free will. And some people may find something that brings a connection with the infinite in ways, and some people don't have this desire. And those who don't are, maybe they haven't fulfilled in some other way. Some people, for example, read lots of books. And by reading lots of books, that's how they connect. And that's their way. And and they don't really need anything else, and they are reluctant to that. But that doesn't mean that they are lost, or they are less, or they are unaware. They can be even more aware, they can even be more conscious, or they can be tapped in with more consciousness than somebody who prays 10 hours a day.
All right. Now, before I was making mention of the fact that you, at this moment, you work within the realm of healing. Um, can you tell us something about that? Help us to understand what you are doing at the moment.
So currently, I am a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, and I work for a school, as I said, that is situated here in Thailand. It's called Samakaruna. But I also work for an organization, a community that I created in Italy with other people, that is called Free the Love, that offers retreats and online events around the area, as I said, of healing. So this is what I'm doing currently. When we talk about healing, it's one of those words which can be very confusing. But to make it very simple and very practical, yoga is a practice of healing, meditation is a practice of healing, fasting, breath work, prana, all these practices are, let's say, called in, or they belong to this area of healing. One other word that you could use is awakening. Or one other word that you can use is evolution. And the common thread of all of this is that there is a desire within the people that practice these things, that are interested in these things, to evolve, to find themselves on a higher level.
Can you explain that in a more deeper sense? Yeah, okay, evolve, that is fine. If somebody coming from the point of view of science might begin to get one interpretation. But I think this is very important also in the realm of spirituality. Can you explain it a little bit deeper? Because you also use another word that I think is very important, which is awakening. So help us to clear that part a little deeper.
But usually by awakening, traditionally, it is meant something that in the Hindu, again, the Eastern tradition is called self-realization. So realize the self, get to know the self, be more and more connected to that element in us that is non-physical and that is made of energy, made of consciousness, and made of awareness. So the more we are, bit by bit, day by day, drop by drop, aware of that consciousness that is within us, that is, the process of awakening. And it's a gradual process, and you could say that is very human and very normal.
How do people usually get to this point of the need or the realization that they need to grow up? This self-realization, is this that somebody just wake up one day and say, okay, yes, I need somebody to help me to grow up? Or how does it usually happen for some people based on experiences, based on the people that you have spoken to? If I were to reframe the question, it would be, why do people need to come to school like yours? Why do they come to those kind of school?
I have to make a disclaimer here, because I can give my opinion, and that doesn't mean that I'm still searching myself for these answers. What I can see from my personal experience is that there is a group of people who tends to come for because they feel some pain. There is pain in their life, and there is something which is unresolved. And that is the majority. And that is something that is called in the tradition karma. And then there are people that have a genuine curiosity and desire for, as I spoke before, evolution. Okay, so the people that come to these kind of practices come either because they are looking for something that will make them suffer less, or they come to it because they have a genuine desire to evolve. This is just the nature of human beings. We invented, I don't know, mathematics, geometry, chemistry. The same desire that brings scientists to understand nature or the universe better is exactly the same desire that brings somebody to a path of awakening. We want to know what's next. We have an impulse, a desire to evolve. And this lies in our biology. We are biologically made to evolve. That's how the human species went from living in caves to where we are now. And the stages that we're living in today, the growth, the evolution is, of course, material, technological, but at this stage, especially after the Second World War, especially after the 60s, there was a very big cultural revolution in the West. There is the evolution, it's also in the realm of human potential. That's how it was called in the 50s and 60s. People are interested in understanding what is the human potential, what is the potential of every single being. And now that we don't have wars, we have a turbulent situation on the planet, but it's comparatively calm compared to, 200 years ago. There's a more space for people to embark on this path of discovering their human potential. That's another way of calling awakening.
All right, Matteo, you see, you are a good example of somebody who is searching for something, because you have done this for very many years also in your story that the one that I know, no? By talking to people in different places across culture, religion, creed, I think you met a lot of people, no? Because you, right from when you were very small, you really be in this soup of contamination, if you want to put it like that. What have you learned looking at people and hearing their story?
Okay. Yeah, we have used a lot of terms and we talked a lot about conceptual, intellectual things. But what I've learned is that at the core, as human beings, we have needs, some more basic needs, some more elaborate needs. And as I said, one of the needs of the human soul and the human spirit is to evolve, to grow. But at the end of the day, the way we can kind of interpret everything, we can give an explanation to everything, is by looking at the human needs, which include love, connection, safety, of course, food and shelter, but also, as we said, growth and evolution. So if you look at everybody, whatever they're doing and however they're doing it, even when it's something that appears to us to be very wrong, it's because they're trying to meet some need. And they're trying to balance themselves out. So this, I don't know if this replies to your question. It's just what came to me as a consequence of your question.
All right, and that is fine, and that is good enough. The one that just come to you is just a bright one. All right, now I am trying to say, do you think that when people embark on this journey of self-rediscovery, they really do find the answer they are looking for at the end of the day?
How can I reply to this question? Because a lot of people don't find what they're looking for, but they actually find what they really need to find.
That's interesting.
So, and I think you're right. There is always an element of not finding. I mean, it's impossible to find everything. That's an illusion. That's a very immature illusion of getting somewhere. There is life, even from a Hindu perspective, that you have multiple lives and infinite lives. There is no end to the journey. There is no end to discovery. Once you discovered what you were looking for, maybe you realize that there's more that you want to look for, and over and over and over and over. So this is this is the nature of this universe. It's always expanding, and this has been explained scientifically, has been explained culturally, and it has been explained spiritually.
Okay, fair enough. People don't find everything they are looking for, but using your own word, they find what they want to find, or they find what they need to find, something like that. I don't know if I quote you correctly on that, but okay, you can contest it if you want, but I'm trying to quote you on
No,
that.
I mean, I can, if you, for example, if you have back pain, okay? So if you have back pain, it's good for you to do some yoga, okay? And you might, after a year of a good yoga practice, have resolved your problem of back pain. This is everyday life. People have back pain because they have in the office too much office time. They start doing yoga. After 1 year of practicing yoga and there's no back pain anymore, something else will emerge. You say, but maybe I'm realizing that my shoulders, just to keep an analogy, are a bit tight. So you say, maybe I should do some meditation to loosen up my shoulders, because that's tension that is not really physical, but it's mostly emotional. And then the next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step. So they do find solution. You find the solution to your back pain, but then that opens another door, and again, and up another door, another door, another door.
Never end. Okay, but that is fine. By the way, we are human beings. We should continue this journey. It is really important. We should really do it. But I don't know if I've asked you, Matteo, what really is yoga?
So again, this is a question that has been given very different explanations. So there, as everything in the Hindu tradition and the Eastern tradition, there is no one explanation. There is no official explanation, like the text of the Evangeli or the official opinion of the. So there's many points of view on that. What we know, I mean, what can be is commonly considered is that in the regions of the Hindu, in the Hindu region, so the north of India, there has been always a mystical tradition. That's a bit the gift of that part of the world to the world. Like Italy has given painting and art, and that's the gift that Italy made to the world at some point. At the early stages of the evolution, the Himalayas kind of had this mystical mentality. And within this mystical tradition, they created a self-mastery system which then ended up being called yoga. And self-mastery means meditations, means physical practices, means being in nature, means having devotional practices. So all of this, but the yogis were masters of self and also of their consciousness and of their body.
Now, I'm looking at the time that you first started to do yoga yourself. When you first get introduced to this practice, yoga, what did you wanted to achieve in it? What was your expectation?
I was essentially very curious. I was a bit bored of my previous practice, which was field hockey. I was playing field hockey in Rome at the beginning of the 90s. That was my sport, that was my hobby. But it lasted for a couple of years. But then it was like, this is not really necessarily my thing. And I had a friend who started practicing yoga, and I just said, hey, bring me with you. I want to check it out. And it was curiosity. It was, it was deep curiosity. But I had no idea, really. I had no information and no idea. It was based on intuition. That's the good answer.
That was then, before you knew what yoga was. Now you know what yoga is because you are a teacher of yoga.
Yes.
What would you say you have benefited from yoga?
Well, of course, I'm going to start with the most simple things. There is a well-being, a physical well-being, a physical level of vitality that comes with the yoga practice, and a certain level, depending on moments and depending on people, of, as we said, we can use that with evolution. You expand your consciousness. So yoga is a practice that even if you just do the physical part, it will have an effect on your consciousness, and it will expand it a little bit, maybe just a little bit. Maybe you can't even perceive it, but overall, over time, it has this effect. So to recap, there is a physical well-being, but also there is an expansion of consciousness that happens kind of automatically.
Okay, I was reading somewhere that there is even from the point of view of health, really just talking of health now, that yoga is very beneficial for people to practice. But of course, I am not an expert of yoga. I don't know, maybe somebody is curious now, just like you. When you started yoga, you started out of curiosity. You didn't know much about it before you start. But somebody perhaps might be hearing that there are some benefit of yoga. For this reason, this person want to start. And maybe this person want to read something. Because if I transcribe what we are saying now, this can become a test. If I put it together, then it become a book. So are there some scientific, I don't know, maybe research or documentation that have shown proof of benefit of yoga that somebody can go out there to read that you know of?
Thank you for this question. And this is, so maybe I can reply to this by using my hand and by using a metaphor. So the yoga practice has changed a lot but not that much. What has happened is that in the West, ever since the Industrial Revolution, which is now 300 years ago, the levels of stress of people has started to increase. So people in the West started to be more and more stressed. And yoga, with his ancient wisdom and immortal, not immortal, but what's the way? Not immortal, but timeless wisdom, has proven to be very effective to manage stress. So yoga went from a spiritual practice of self-mastery, as I described before, to a stress relief tool, just like mindfulness. People that were stressed were, are, and still are, like recommended to go to yoga or to do a meditation practice. So what has changed is not yoga or not meditation. That hasn't changed that much. What has changed is the level of stress in the Western world.
That is good enough. That is it's really interesting. Now, personally, on a personal note, perhaps you do ask other people, maybe your students who come to you to give you a feedback or something like that. What did they tell you that they have benefited from yoga?
Well, I mean, let's be very simple. One of the benefits of yoga is to develop and to have more concentration, attention span, slowing down the pace, learning to breathe better, learning to have a better posture, learning to be more in control of the mind. So these are the benefits, and they are actually scientifically proven, meaning that they have done studies and that which showed very clearly that people that practice yoga had better productive performance in their jobs or in their personal life. It's documented. And this not just for yoga, this goes for qigong or even other practices like playing an instrument.
How do one begin to master this practice? Because, like you said, it's an ancient practice. And of course, many of the ancient practices do have a lot of wisdom buried in them. And this is how they are very beneficial to us because we didn't just jump down from somewhere here. We are the product of their evolution. And therefore, we're going to continue this and pass it on also to other people. So if it is ancient, meaning there are a lot of deep value that we can get from it. But how do we really master it? Because I think you also use the word self-mastery as what this is part of. How do we begin to master the art of yoga?
Well, the traditional and the most common reply to this question is practice, practice, practice. Yoga has been traditionally, and it is today, something that needs and requires a constant, steady practice. And this you will not. If you do a twice a week yoga class, the benefits kind of keep up. But if you don't practice yoga for 10 days, it's like starting a bit all over again. So the way to master everything, including yoga, is practice. That's why you need to choose a practice, whatever that is, that really resonates with you. And some people resonate more with singing, playing an instrument, or drawing, and that's their yoga. That's their practice. That's their commitment. That's their discipline.
Okay, that part I didn't get it very well. So I'm going to ask for your clarification. You mean if somebody is playing music, he's doing yoga, or if somebody is writing, is doing yoga? I didn't get that part.
Yes. If doing yoga, if doing drawing, for example, or playing music helps you to have a more expanded state of consciousness and brings you to more unity consciousness, which means being more connected to everything that is yoga. Yes, traditionally, that is how the texts have said. Yoga is not practicing asana or a yoga class. It is aiming to a state of union. And if the mean is playing an instrument, that is a form of yoga according to the earlier scriptures and to a broad definition. Yes.
Okay. Another thing I'm also trying to understand here is that Are there ways to prepare? Okay, now you said that it can even be maybe somebody practicing how to play instruments. So in this case, I might not need to ask. We don't need to go to the mountain before we can do yoga, no? So we don't need to go to any special place, right?
Yes.
We can do it right from our home, or maybe spread a sheet on the ground and lie down, focus. So I really want to understand what really make it very effective. Because if it is effective, there must be something that make it work. What really make it really effective?
Okay, so the short answer to this is it makes it effective that it's a combination of physical practice with awareness practice. So there is the body being involved, but also awareness being involved. So there is an element of concentration, focus, and of transcendence. But coming back to what your observation was, I would like to point out, because this sometimes is really misplaced, that anciently, the first practice of yoga had to do with ethics. So what the first steps of a yogic training, traditionally, and I'm talking many years ago, was to learn ethics. So how to behave towards yourself, the commitment towards yourself, and the commitments to the others. And this is called yamas and niyamas. So the first move, the first step that the young yogis were taught and educated into was ethics.
That is very important. and and I also believe also that a lot of discipline is going to be required here now, because if you are talking of focus, these are things that I don't know, whichever way you want to look at it, to be able to focus, you need a lot of attention. It's not something that you just pick and go. No, you take a camera, you want to take. So you really need to. You need the time. You need a certain amount of time to really be sure that that is what you want to do. Otherwise, the camera cannot even focus. So you don't just focus. It will not focus because you are too much in a haste. So how much discipline actually is required for proper yoga? Or is it something that you can just jump in and jump out and still get the result?
Well, it's a bit different for everyone. It's not, there is no straight answer to this. Because a lot of people think of discipline as a very pleasurable thing. And some people have a negative connotation to discipline. For most of the people that stick to some kind of practice, the discipline becomes pleasurable. Otherwise, they will not stand. It will not stick. If it wasn't pleasurable for Mozart to play the piano, he would not have played the piano. So for him, discipline and pleasure, or for yogic, discipline and pleasure, they kind of go together. If discipline is just strength and willpower and all of that, it's a form of discipline that will not last. So this is where yoga, any spiritual practice, any evolutionary practice is an art. It's not a science, because it's a mixture of some free will, some will, but also of art and pleasure of doing the practice.
All right. Thank you very much, Matteo. I benefited a lot from your conversation today. We are moving towards the end. We have not yet ended. But just like me, who have known a lot of things from what you have said, there are some other persons watching us now who have also got some value from it, and perhaps they want to know more coming to you. Is there something that you are offering, kind of a way that people can get to know more about you? Share with them, please.
So currently, for those who speak English, my website is the best way to connect, because it's in English and it's my name and surname.com. So MatteoMorozzo.com. For those who are Italian speakers, there is another website that I can refer to, and it's called freetolove.it, which is my current company and organization. We organize retreats both in Italian and in English. And the major focus of these retreats is, again, the spiritual component of intimacy, which is another chapter, another argument that here I can just describe shortly, but we can maybe come back to it in another moment.
Please go.
Because there are some spiritual traditions, and in all of the traditions before religion, intimacy, which means family ties, which means love, which is romance, had always a spiritual component. And even to this day, when people get married, it's a celebration. It's a union, generally in front of God. There is a spiritual component of the creation of a family, of a union, of a relationship. And how intimacy, so relating to others and relating also in romantic relationships, and evolution are connected. This is what I'm currently focused on, and this is what we work with in this company of mine, which organizes retreat, as I said. And you can find more information on the website, which I hope it can be linked somewhere, www.freetolove.it.
That is very interesting. And particularly the topic that you mentioned there is going to be very important. So, like you say, you have promised the audience that we are coming back for it. So that should be our next discussion, because
yes, exactly.
Who is the person that is not coming from a family? We're all coming from a family, and most of us have families. You have kids, or you are a child of somebody, you are a father or a mother of somebody. So in one way or the other, we are connected. So it's an argument that we definitely are going to treat. All right, looking at the conversation of today, Matteo, if you were to list out the 3 most important advantages for practicing yoga, what would they be?
So the first one for me, so I'm saying more from my person, is the first aspect is community. The moment you practice something, it's very likely that you're going to develop some relationships, some connections, some friendships, which you are on the same length. So practicing yoga gives generally, not necessarily, but generally expands your network of connection, and it goes towards deeper connection. So practicing yoga also helps connection, friendships, and relationships. The second benefit, of course, it's physical well-being. And the third benefit, which we haven't really talked about, but I will somehow refer it here briefly, is a term that maybe not a lot of people have heard in the mainstream media, and it's called embodiment. What has happened to the world with technology in the last 200 years, let's say, that we have been more and more living in our head. Thinking has been the only way of being. And we have, even in Africa, even in most of the parts of the world, lost connection with the body. And yoga helps us to kind of re-own and reconnect to the body. And that has a number of benefits that I will not talk here, but you can intuit. So embodiment is one of those big benefits of yoga.
I want to thank you for the time, especially because time is everything. So for you to spend your time here and be chatting with us about yourself, we really do appreciate it. And in this podcast, we talk about a lot of things. Actually, we talked about not only about yoga, because really, like I said, often this podcast is open to all sort of discussion. So we are, yes, we do have some guidelines to follow, but we really are free to share our mind. We just share our mind, what is happening inside our mind. We share it with people so that we can connect. But of course, we also spend some good time talking about yoga and the benefits of yoga, where it came from, how it goes to the Western society, as it were, and all that. So, to conclude it, what would be your message? Maybe that is something you wanted to say. I didn't ask you because I was sort of just jumping around. I don't know. So, what would be your own conclusion of this podcast? Let's go.
Well, I would like to end it on a very grounded and down to earth note, and which can sound like this: every ailment of the body, so maybe back pain, as I said, or neck pain, or shoulder pain, or tiredness, anything that is body related, which is the primary reason why people get in touch with yoga, has a deeper meaning. So if my right shoulder hurts, unless it's a specific accident, but even then, there are always a deeper meaning in that the body is giving us messages. So the practice of yoga, as many things, teaches us that the body is giving us messages. Life is giving us messages. And the practice of yoga allows us to listen to those messages. So to make it even simple, every single thing that happens to your body, it's a message from somewhere that has not been received. And yoga allows you to maybe explore that message.
And that is very powerful.
That's very simple. So if you have anything, every little ailment, just don't consider, I just have a little bit of neck pain. The neck pain, it is real, but it holds deeper meaning. And this is what yoga opens you up to, this deeper meaning.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it from this end, the time that you spent here, and also the sharing that you did. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.